Hey folks, welcome to another Hall of Fame with Prajakt Deshpande. I've had the distinct pleasure of knowing Prajakt and mildly working with him as well. A kick-ass personality, extremely proactive, energetic, and he's currently an engineering manager at Microsoft. I think he's had a very nice trajectory in terms of being with 3-4 Fortune 500 companies, which is Oracle, etc. And also having worked with as one of the early engineers for a very fast growing startup,
Right,
Coney Labs.
right.
So, and he started out as a techie, and now he's transitioned to a full-blown, senior leader. Welcome, thank you. I appreciate your time. I know
Thanks a lot,
this
Jay.
is,
Thank you,
yeah,
Jay. Thanks a lot for all the nice words.
yeah, and he's always keen on sort of learning and whenever I've sort of requested time from him, he's always been there. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So,
Sure.
without
Thanks a
further
lot, Jay.
ado, let's dive in. Prajakt, talk us about your journey. You've seen it fairly all from low, medium to tall. Would love to know in your own words your journey or summary.
Essentially, so yeah, my career spans over 21 years now. I did my engineering from NIT Nagpur. I'm not a software. I mean, from my CADs, I'm a mechanical engineer. But
So am I.
first year into my journey, I realized that software is my calling. I used to do some small software for actually I was deploying software for L&T, Larsen and Toubro, and my job used to be like, hey, go to the shop floor and actually install stuff. But then I used to learn a lot and it was fun. And then I felt that, hey, if I were to actually make my career in software, then I actually need to move to a proper software engineering company rather than just working in the software division of a manufacturing company. And that's when I did actually, so I also then realized that, hey, methodical learning, like organized learning is the way to like approach it. So I did my Java certification and I felt good about it, but of course that itself was not enough to help me, move ahead. But somehow I think destiny destined it that I landed in Hyderabad, and I kind of joined a small company in those days. Serenoma, it was working in e-commerce, and I think in 2000 the boom was just going to set down, but it was during the time when everybody was investing in internet based businesses, and that's where my journey started. So the first 7 years were in application development, focused on a consultant role, focused on customer, focused on their experience, how do we engage customers, solve their problems. 2007, I felt like, hey, it's time to do something different. So we kind of like couple of about 4 or 5 friends got together. One of our what you can say CEOs of my earlier companies, which I started in Hyderabad, he was looking for a tech team, and one of my mentors, he was also looking to enlarge that team, and we kind of like 5 folks joined our mentor and providing the technical leadership. That's when we started our mobile app dev platform. So it was 2007. It was still early days for mobile. iPhone had just been launched, but I think by 2008, everybody realized that mobile is here to stay, and we built a great company from zero to almost $100 million of revenue. So I was there till about 2016. Yeah, the company was doing good. I was feeling stagnated a bit, and then I felt like, hey, I am ready to, look at essentially challenge myself, wherein hey, I don't have a lot of context. It's like a green field. I have to and really trust my abilities to actually succeed. So that's when I joined Oracle. I spent about 2.5 years leading their digital banking portfolio, and after that it was due to multiple travel issues. Like, okay, my team was based in Mumbai, Bangalore, and I had to travel a lot. So I kind of shifted my base to Hyderabad again. For a small time, I joined a very small startup, but a very interesting startup in recruitment ad tech space. I never knew such space existed, but it was very interesting space. And but then COVID struck, and like doing that involves to a much more stable option. So that's when I joined Microsoft. I have been there for about almost a little bit more than a year, and I'm looking forward to a feature that will be releasing next Windows 11 release. So of course, I cannot tell you about the feature. It's an AI-based feature, but essentially we are rewriting one of the experiences. So it has been a great journey. So overall, from leading multiple team, from being an individual contributor to leading teams of 20 to almost just execution. So yeah, I'm loving all the way going from low to high and again to what hands on. Right. What do you, Jay?
Yeah, perfect. I think so. Just want to talk about a little bit about that point you mentioned from the shop floor at L&T. Not a tech company per se, but a huge,
Right.
I guess I want to say maybe infrastructure company. But
Yes.
from that to being one of the founding engineers or top, first 10 team members of Kony Labs, all the way to 100 mil, and then your transition to Oracle. Talk us about specifically, how do you survive that kind of ups and lows in terms of compression of the mindset, right? Because shop floor is completely different. I interned at TVS, which I'm very embarrassed. Like I literally did no work there, but the shop floor is like a crazy experience. From there to fast growing 9-figure company, what was your mindset shift like? That's number one. You reinvent yourself. Number two, again, then going back to
Right.
Oracle, right? So again, that's a tens of billions of dollar company. So what was that mindset shift? Those two reinventions that you had.
Right. So I think from my perspective, if you look at it, I think one of the constant thinking that I've kind of like probably inherited or imbibed is learning. So essentially, I always like, hey, I am very excited whenever I learn something, right? I mean, that's the key driver for me. And I think, and one of the other things that I realized is a lot of times. So coming not from a non-computer science background, I soon realized that I have to get my basics right. So actually, you know what, in the first 7 years, I used to do like 2 3 certifications, like whichever tech I kind of dabbled with, like .NET, I would get that certification done. And like, you know what, anything like DB2, I would have like, so people used to look at my desk and say, you know what, I get inspired by the number of certificates you have got on the desk. Of course, that felt good. But my perspective was that, hey, you know what, I think one of the things in our culture we really lack is like organized way of approaching like learning, as well as like, you know what, step by step approaching. We are very much into just dive into the water and just figure out swimming, and that something works a lot of times, like on job learning. But I think I soon realized that I have to approach in a very methodical way, and that would mean that, yeah, I have to spend some resources on that, whether it's time, monetary, or like, you know what, going beyond like 20, like 12-hour cycle and actually what, spending time over the weekends. Also, what I realized is that, hey, I would, one of the things that I would do is like, I would publicly first announce that, hey, I'm going to do this certification, right? I'll just say that. So that created a lot of forcing function for me, that, you know what, now I have now said that I have to do it. Now I better do it. So that way it was like a motivation for me to not give up during the course. So I would first announce that I'm just doing it, folks. I mean, next 6 months you will see that the one certificate out there. So that would be my strategy to, you know what, help like act as a forcing function for me to do that goal. Because once you announce to public, right, you really don't want to feel yourself let down. So that was one of the things that, so one was like this smaller thing. So any tech I would, so I still remember I used to do like, you know what, a lot of Linux was pretty new 2002, and we used to like, you know what, do dual boot, uninstall, install, and so many things we used to do, right? And Windows. And so I actually did a Linux certification. I mean, nobody would go for there was still an LPI, Linux Professional. I actually did that because I always felt that, hey, you know what? I've learned so many random things. Let me like consolidate that learning into something logical, which would say, you know what, like everything is connecting together. So that was my strategy in the first 7 years. So I would just do this. Any new tech I would learn, I would just do a certification. So that was my strategy. To answer your second question, from that startup environment to Oracle, I think, so till 2016, if you look at my career, I was always except L&T, I was always in companies which grew along with me. So it was like I was like 100th employee or the first employee or the second employee, and I used to grow. So I grew along with the company, right? So that way, like, your network, your connections, your rapport, you don't have to put any extra effort into it, right? So in 2016, I felt like, you know what? is it like just because I'm lucky that I landed up there, can I survive in a completely green field, like where everything is established? Are my skills still relevant, my people skills or my tech skills? And that's when I felt like, hey, let's try with Oracle. Let's see, like, hey, what happens? Are you still so good? I mean, good enough to kind of in the last 6 years it will help you. Challenge I felt, and that's the reason kind of I took the Oracle opportunity. One of the key things that I learned is like I really honed my people skills kind of there, because a I had to put like conscious effort into it. Again, there was a learning, so I actually did a lot of trainings during that time, just honing my people skills. Because it's easy to motivate people when you are growing along with the people, but it's not so. You have to make really conscious effort to motivate people when you don't know them, and you have to build trust over a period of time, right? So that's something that I learned there. And then I also, like, you know what, I think during that time as well, I think we are shifting. That's when I also realized that, hey, you know what, the AI field is, like, you know what, everybody's talking about AI. Everybody was saying that, you know what, hey, this field is just for mathematicians and PhDs and folks like that. So I used to first internally realize that, yeah, probably they are right, and it's too hard for me to even touch it, right? But then I felt that, hey, you know what, hey, anyways, fair enough, it might be still be required that kind of deep knowledge, but let me again go back and see if apply it further. And that's when I, like, you know what, decided to do a course, a very methodical way of 6 month course. And I think that has helped me a lot, because now I am at a place where at least I don't feel left out when people talk about models, and when people talk about, like, you know what, how AI can be applied to solve the specific problem, Jay.
Sorry. Yeah, perfect. I think that's I mean, I can only imagine, the kind of willpower you need to, continue to upskill yourself, take the certifications, etc. That's kind of,
Right,
uh, really extremely determined to even do that, right? And you have a full-time job, etc. Yeah. Okay, which brings to the, circling back to the focus of this discussion. So let's talk about the pre-course. So there's pre-course, course, and post-course. I know you upskilled in the artificial intelligence machine learning space. Talk us about the 6 months prelude to that. What was your mindset? What was Prajakt's mindset going through, etc.? Did you have a thematic way to upskill, or did you just saw a seminar on AI, or some friend told you about the coursework, the program? And then how did you actually, what was the trigger, like, to go in and purchase, etc.? What was your mindset leading up to that trigger?
so essentially, if I look back at 6 months before I took that course, essentially, if first I started with, I mean, basically you start with Google and YouTube. You start looking at the videos, everybody's talking about it, everybody of your colleagues is also speaking about it. And then you start feeling like, actually you start feeling like you have been left out, and you are looking like, and they would just throw words at you, and you are not even able to make head and tail out of it. And then you start doubting your capabilities. Actually, you know what, what's happening here? Like, I mean, somebody with equal amount of experience or less experience is just throwing words. I mean, till then in software tech, you would get a lot of things like server side programming, microservices, asynchronous programming, lambdas, functional programming, like oops, object oriented programming. So you will not feel left out. Ah, I know what they're talking about, and probably I can add value to that conversation, right? But here there was like, I started feeling, hey, let me read about it. What are they talking about it? And then one thing led to the other, and then it was like a chain reaction. Like, hey, one video, it's not sufficient. Okay, there are 10 words in this video, right? Let me figure out what each of them means, right? What do you mean by model? Okay, first let's understand that. It was going on, and then I felt that, hey, it involves statistics, it involves deep some amount of math, then it involves programming, then you talk about frameworks. So it's a lot of, so first 6 months were like random learning from one place to another. I did try Coursera as well, trying to attempt to it, but didn't have like really the didn't feel like it was putting so much like it was acting like a forcing function for me to actually go through that. So I would give up in the middle. You have to be able to contribute and make sense of what's happening around, and you have to actually leverage that knowledge and actually help your customer solve that. So essentially that's when I decided that, you know what, I have to go through the hard work. There's no shortcut to it. You have to go through the hard work, right? I mean, that's when I realized it may not be 6 months, but probably 3-4 months for sure. And that's when I decided, hey, it required money. Yes, and I thought it's an investment in my career. Like, I mean, you always look at it as investment. Hey, you know what, you look at your assets like car and house. So why is this not an investment in my career? And I felt like that was, yeah, spending on education, it is some amount, but I think it's a very worthwhile investment. It pays you off in the very long run for sure. So that was my mindset. And finally I decided, hey, this is an let me make sure that I actually devote time. And once you pay for something, you are forced to devote time and you can't get around with it. So that's what I did. In
But
fact, just one more point. Yeah, there actually, in fact, I also tried to do an online course from one of the actually from Udacity, but I was not getting head and tail of it. I actually paid for it. I was not getting head and tail of what they were trying to say actually. And that's when I decided that, you know what, classroom training is the one which we have to go for. And that's when I felt like, you know what, a dedicated, focused way of learning. And like it or not, once I did the course, I actually redid all my Udacity course and like completed it, because that's when I could, now they are making sense. What are they talking about? Oh, now I get it, kind of a thing.
that's true. I feel like also there's a huge abandonment rate in those kind of settings as well. You definitely need
Right.
a little bit of live classroom, uh, you know, setting where you at least feel like you can ask questions and all that. Yeah, fair enough.
Right,
Okay,
right, right.
perfect. And talk about a little bit of two-part question. So now we've almost finished the pre-course, but there's one small question there, which is talk about the resistances. I know you couldn't finish it, etc. But did you feel like you were weak in math or programming because you've been, out of touch for maybe 10 years? I don't know if you were very, very hands-on. That was one. And second is during course, what are the kind of sacrifices you've made? So if you're gaining something, you have to pay the cost somewhere, personal or professional,
Right.
sabbatical or whatever it is. Yeah.
So I think what was the resistance, if I talk about it, I think programming was not that much. I was may not be hands-on committing to production code, but I used to do always a POC, try out some stuff that some of my engineers had built. So it was not a, I won't say that was kind of a resistance, but yes, it was like, in a sense it was, because now what I write has been observed by like 5 or 6 people. So I think that was like, till then, like I used to observe somebody's code. Now people are going to observe my code, right? So yes, that was a resistance that felt like, you know what, hey, am I still good enough to write like a readable code and things like that? So that was one resistance. The second definitely was math. So I was, even though I was very good at maths, but it was like, you know what, in your 12th and like CADs, you just run through it. Like, I mean, you just run through it like a machine. You don't try to understand concepts that well. And I felt that probably I may not have done that. So I think definitely basic understanding of maths was something that I was fearing, that probably will I get it or not get it, right? I think that's what these were the two. Yeah, I think you alluded to that fact, but yeah, these were also two. And the third resistance was that, you know what, will I be able to sit for 4 or 5 hours? I think that's itself, like you, in office you keep going, like keep taking short breaks, 15-20 minutes, but here you have to actually sit through it for 4 or 5 hours. And like going back to the college life to a certain extent, is that something that you'll be able to get through it? Or these were the resistances that I can think of. Now during the course, what were the kind of sacrifices? Yeah, first of all I had to convince my family that yeah, this is needed, and for the next 6 months all my weekends are booked, right? So pretty much you needed their support. So initially they were, really, you want to do this course? Why do you want to spend so much money on this course? Is it that important? But yeah, it is that important. I mean, it's just an investment, right? And so that's something. So, but eventually, that was not a big, what you can say, that was not a big hurdle for me. But during the course, definitely the sacrifices were like weekends, like Saturday, Sunday were kind of booked for sure. So almost 6 hours. So you would start at like 9 in the morning and would end up at like almost 2 in the afternoon. And then after that as well, class would go on. So 6 months, all my weekends were gone off. So not that great time to relax, and then you have to catch up on your weekday work, right? So during the weekday as well, you are reading a bit, but you really cannot spend a whole lot of time, right? So yeah, these were the kind of sacrifices that I had to give. Definitely give up family time. Definitely give up like weekend time for sure.
I know it's kind of crazy, the kind of in the Hall of Fame interviews that we're having with Pixeltests right now. A lot of people have had very different stories to narrate, and it's literally like it's crazy the kind of cost you have to pay. It's like chess. You have to know you have to sacrifice, and you have to know that it's something that you're very attached to, deeply personal. Kids time, spouse time, parents time, or in-laws time, etc., or even professionally, because weekend is when you unwind, right? And I'm sure even professional, there's a little bit of maybe an appraisal or a fast track trajectory. Perfect. Which leads to the next question. So we finished the course, the post course piece. Talk us a little bit about what happened after that. Did you right away get to use these concepts, or at least your lens changes on the way you see problems, right? The same rose that you see, no more looks red, but it's red, blue, green. You start seeing convolution layers and all that. But talk us a little bit about, what opportunities opened up, how you started, navigating after that, your metamorphosis, if any.
Got it. So I think after I did my course, I was like really confident about myself, first of all. Yeah, if somebody's talking about it within my peers, actually, I was able to contribute to that. And people did acknowledge that. I think the one fact that also gave me confidence, that people did, oh, you actually did a 6 months course. Actually, you must be serious. People did realize that it was serious stuff, right? And that was a great acknowledgement. It's well spent. The second aspect was that I think it really helped me, because in my role in Oracle, I used to meet like customers like almost on a every 2 or 3 weeks. We used to get into a customer conversation, right? And doing this kind of helped me when I was talking to them and their tech teams, right? I think it would make a lot of sense, and I was able to add a lot of value. So within the short span of time, within my professional circle or my office network, I was kind of, oh, you know what? Hey, let's talk to Project. Let's get into a conversation. I think he's probably done some hands-on work here and probably has got some learning. Let us involve him. Probably he will be able to engage the customer better here in this aspect, right? So we also did some POCs. Of course, we could not get into, but it showcased within our team that, yeah, you know what? Hey, we can do something. So I think that gave me the confidence. I think the one thing that really helped me land up something new was when I decided to move from Oracle to a startup. So I kind of looked at them. They were like completely a data company. Like basically, they were just collecting tech data and using that to target their customers, right? So essentially, I went to this, and then and after 2 months into the job, I kind of like asked my CEO and the board member who had recruited me, and it said, you know what, hey, why did you pick me? Why? I mean, you must have spoken to a lot of candidates. So I think one of the board members actually emphasized twice or thrice that, hey, the only reason we picked you was that you had this, like, you know what, you had the ML and the AI background. And that's the reason that was something different from all the engineering leaders we were talking about it. Everybody was more into like execution, but here we have got data, here we have got dedicated teams. Can you actually engage the team into doing some meaningful work? You yourself may not do it, but at least you are able to make sure that the software engineering principles are applied actually to engage the data team and make sure that, you know what, the experience when it is built, it is just not, see, AI and ML is just not in isolation. You have to marry it with some customer experience, some customer problem that you're trying to solve, right? So I think my CEO kind of like pointed out that, you know what, hey, that was one of the differentiating factors. So that's when I realized, oh, oh, fine, man, something happened, right? I mean, that's really something that was like a clear cut advantage that I had walking into such kind of roles actually. Yeah.
Perfect. I think
And
that's
yeah, I think right, right, go ahead.
no, sorry, go on. Yeah.
Right. So I think so in that space, actually, there was very interesting problems we were trying to solve. Essentially, we used to receive this ad tech data, and essentially, we used to. There are two problems. One is to recommend our customers onto their spending. So basically, they are spending on ads, right, to target certain, to recruit certain kind of roles. The idea was that hey, looking at their responses to the previous customers ads, right, how can we recommend that hey, to place the best bid and to place the best value kind of live. So those kind of we were trying to build some recommendations around it. And we were in early stages of trying out, because all these recommendations are trial and error. You actually try them out, see how they're working, and then fine tune it back. That was one thing. The second application about resumes. You are looking at resumes. You are trying to figure out, hey, for this kind of a role, which are the best resumes that are suited to you. So that means like you have to do, while resumes were getting parsed into from unstructured data to a structured data, but really applying NLP on top of it to figure out, like, what his resumes make more sense for this kind of role, and certain resumes are not. So we were also trying to invest on that to actually give customers that hey, for this job ad, probably these are the kind of like top five candidates who are more suited, and give them score, a weighted average of their score based on their resume pattern.
Perfect. Perfect. I think recruitment is a huge ass problem
Right.
that everybody is going through, and I think enough cannot be done about it. It's like education or healthcare. Like you just have to be
Right.
at it. Tremendous amounts of opportunity. And then talk us
Right.
a little bit about what happened. So before we talk about your transition to Microsoft and maybe one or two use cases, I want to talk about something that might be very specific to you. So what's going wrong with leaders or mid-level to senior leaders in terms of their learning or unlearning outlook? Like one would think that everybody should be like Prajakt. Maybe Prajakt is an outlier, but you should at least upskill in tech once in 3 years, reasonably, at least, like, one certification or whatever the case might be. But I see not many people do that, and they're comfortable, they're complacent, and obviously, they're on the path to being a casualty, right? Slightly being delicate. But what's going wrong there? Or conversely or inversely, what's going right?
See, I think Jay, I think it requires like when you are when you look at your leadership style, I think are you a very do you feel how much confident you are? Do you feel like you need to be a very hands-on leader, or you want to be a very hands-off kind of a leader, right? So I think you need to figure out your own style. And I'm not saying one style is good and one style is bad, right? While there might be a popular opinion that hands-on leaders are the best, but of course there are other skills that they may not be having, like especially around people skills, which kind of put them into a path of like not being successful, right? But once you figure out, hey, I want to be on hand. So like, for example, it's very clear for me. For me, disambiguity is a big, like if things are like ambiguous, right? For me, it's like a big, more turn off for me. Like, I don't want to be in a situation where things are ambiguous for me, where I'm just going through the motion, just spelling out something and like not really understanding it, right? So I think in my view, once you figure out that, hey, my style, if your style is hands-on, if you really believe you are on hands-on, you have to get into it. I mean, there's no other way, and you have to go through a structured way. So this is one thing on the AI side, is something that I realized that, hey, it's not about, hey, I will learn on the job. It's very difficult to learn on the job here, because there are so many concepts there. You really cannot learn on the job. Because because the other people will just like like just walk so fast that you are not able to catch up, right? And given that you must be having 15, 16 years of experience, your brain cells may not be working that fast as probably a youngster. So you have to go through a very structured way of learning there. That's what I think once you realize that you are a hands-on leader, you have to do it. I mean, there's no other way. So I think that could be So either you decide that, you know what, hey, you're not a hands-on leader, but you're a hands-off leader. You have to change your mindset to actually, you know what, go through the hard work. There is, because this field is like so vast and so deep that it's like an ocean. You get into it, right? And you can get lost. You can get lost. So you have to figure out your own niche. You have to figure out your own area into it and try to make sure that you are good at it.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. Which brings sort of a segue to the last two questions that we have. One is, what's going on with Microsoft? What are you building? Any interesting use cases? Obviously, with whatever you can share to the listeners. And second question is, what are the trends that you're following? What's next for Project? What's exciting and not so exciting? Yeah.
Great. So I think one of the yeah, at Microsoft, I think AI is a big part of the play, and AI has been, if you look at it, AI has been a lot onto Azure and like the kind of services we provide, and also in Office. If you look at Office, like there's a big push on the AI. I think the best feature I like on Office is building PowerPoints, right? So I have tried to use Google Sheets earlier, but never kind of worked out. So one of the great AI features in PowerPoint is, hey, it looks at my slide and gives me a, and like it or not, it for about 8 times, it actually gives me a good template to actually redesign my slide. It looks at my content, actually say, you know what, you have bullets, you have a timeline. Why don't you actually project it like this, right? I think that's one of the best services. And there's a huge investment in Microsoft. Actually, there is a complete middleware this dedicated to, what, AI services in Microsoft Office or Office suite of applications, which kind of abstracted. So every client need not build the same kind of service every time, right? So now I think from Windows, I'm working the Windows team, and Windows has been, because Windows is so pervasive and we are so much focused on not breaking, backward compat, because otherwise we'll just lose our user base, right? Is that I think overall we have not been that fast to actually adopt, but that mindset is changing. You would see a host of AI services being probably being launched in the near future on Windows. I'm pretty excited about it. I am working on one of the features. I, of course, cannot go to the depth nor even give an area about it. But yeah, I think it's not a, I don't think it's something that nobody has done it or nobody has done it. We are just trying to approach it in a very different perspective, just rejuvenating the entire experience. One of the key things that has come to my mind is that, hey, you know what? So one of the pet peeves of model designers and data scientists is that, hey, I've done this, but there's nobody using it, right? So there's a huge push to actually build a cohesive experience out of it. So unless and until that experience is nailed, right, your AI is really just like a R&D project, and nobody wants to leave that. So one of the things that the teams, what I've realized at Microsoft is that the AI teams are pushing teams like experience teams to actually build an experience, right? And that's one thing. The second thing I've realized is that you know what, I think being at Microsoft and companies like at Microsoft, they are at leading edge or a bleeding edge of like hardware and, you know what, AI tech been built, right? So I have seen like data scientists talking about, hey, this was the model, I actually presented this model, I took off this one node, and like, you know what, the performance increased, right? So, and then they go back to their Qualcomm chips and then say, you know what, I need this capability to do it. So they iterate over it and finally they say, hey, you know what, hey, NPUs. So I think I'm truly now getting that edge computing is like, you know what, here to stay, because we went from client server to completely server, but now edge computing is getting back. The edge is now getting more and more powerful, and people, you want to do a lot on the edge rather than going back to the server. So I think that's one of, that has been some revelation for me, that, you know what, I used to always think that, hey, AI means on the server, not on the edge, right? But now we are seeing a lot of AI being done on the edge, and yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, we have one more person, Pradeep, also a previous student, who's in the ML inferencing team. He was on the Hall of Fame recently, and he was talking about what's happening on the edge, etc. In fact, actually, logically speaking, Moore's law is what all of us were fascinated and grew up with, but it's actually truncated. After that, software you can only write as fast as possible, like your binary sort or quick sort and all that. But after that, it has to come full stack. It has to go to hardware to start increasing the
Right.
speeds that you want. So we've seen edge,
Right.
some including in health, on the IoT space as well, or basically on, a lot of progress on the hardware. And so one of the requirements, the JDs at Qualcomm, I was surprised, is like full proficiency with C++, etc. I was like, wait, what? And that's not a computer vision
Right.
set. I was like, okay, makes sense. And he
Yeah.
was just finding it very hard to find talent for that, because everybody loves batting, but
Right.
cricket World Cups are not won with batting. You need to know bowling and fielding, which is the unsexy part, which is the
Right.
the hardware
True.
and the
True.
yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. Sorry, that's my pup behind. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Yeah, for your time. I really, really appreciate it, and would love to, catch up some other time with you as well.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jay, and be safe, and yeah, and get vaccinated.
Thank you. Yeah, my second shot's pending. So
Yeah. So get it soon. Take care.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.